So yung ating Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, mga kababayan, pinangunahan ngayon yung situational briefing sa epekto, paghanda sa epekto, mga kababayan, ng bagyong si Pepito. Pati yung pati na yung kakalabas pa lang, kakaalis pa lang na bagyong si Ophel. Then yung nauna pa kay Ophel, si Nika. Bigay ko na ito sa inyo, mga kababayan. Baka naman kasi may masabi na naman yung mga DDS. Kasi walang pinipiling panahon po itong mga DDS. Kahit sa gitna ng calamity, nandun pa rin sila sa black propaganda. Ganon kasama ang kaluluwa, mga kababayan. Palibasa, ang leader nila, leader ng impyerno. Drag me to hell. Yung mag-ama mismo. So, wag na muna natin sila pansinin ngayon. Kundi dito muna tayo, focus muna tayo sa paghanda ng ating gobyerno. Yung response, lalo na dito sa pinaglalaoman, inaasahan. Yung tama kasi dito sa amin po, pero kami ready na rin, mga kababayan. Kapon pa naka-ready yung probinsya ng Albay, Sorsogon, buong Bicol region po. Kasi sa forecast ng Pag-asa, ang talagang tatamaan ng mata ng bagyo ni Pepito po, yung Catanduanes. Nasa pat mismo yung yung Catanduanes, mga kababayan. So yan po, mga kababayan, yung ating Pangulong Bongbong. Siya mismo yung nanguna. Pakinggan natin yung sinasabi ng ating Pangulo.
So please.
Distinguished members of the cabinet.
Yes, so another one that we have to do. This another NDRMC meeting in preparation for the, well, first of all, to see the status of what we have been able to do after the passage of Marce, and of course now to prepare for Pepito. I think let's hear first from PAGASA to give us what the situation is concerning the storms. Well, I know that one is going away, but Pepito looks very large and very strong. So please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, and distinguished members of the cabinet, and of course, our colleagues in the government. I will present the latest update about Typhoon Pepito. As of 2 p.m. this afternoon, it is located 510 kilometers silangan ng Giwan, Eastern Samar. With wind strength 150 kilometers per hour and gustiness up to 185 kilometers per hour. It is moving westward at 30 kilometers per hour. Medyo may kabilisan siya. Ito po ang projected track ng Pepito. Ito ay inasahan na mag-intensify pa habang ito ay papalapit sa ating kalupaan at maaring abot ng super typhoon before maglandfall over Catanduanes bukas ng gabi or Sunday early morning. Ang sentro nito will traverse parts of Bicol region, Quezon and Central Luzon, then exit the landmass via Pangasinan on Sunday evening. And then it will exit the Philippine Area of Responsibility by Monday. Gusto ko pong emphasize, Mr. President, ang cone of uncertainty. Again, within that area ay maaaring magbago ang track ng bagyo or even landfall location. Sa ngayon, nakataas na ang storm wind signals sa halos sa buong Kabikulan, maging ang eastern parts of the Visayas, particular na ang Samar provinces. Ang highest signal ay signal number 2. But of course, inasahan natin na ito ay tataas pa habang papalapit ang bagyong Pepito. Next slide please. Dahil po papalabas na o papalayo ang bagyong Ophel, sa ngayon ang inasahan natin mga pag-ulan ay nakafocus na lamang doon sa may Babuya, Batanes Group of Islands. Next slide please. Subalit tomorrow, simula tanghali hanggang Sunday ng tanghali, inasahan natin ang walang humpay na pagbuhos ng ulan, intense to torrential rain, na abot ng mahigit 200 millimeters of rain. Ito po yung mga areas na nakapula, no? Ito po yung of course kasama diyan ang Catanduanes, Albay, Sorsogon at Northern Samar. Malakas hanggang napakalakas na buhos ng hangin, ulan. Ito po naman ang areas na naka-orange. Inasan po natin ang ulan na abot ng 100 to 200 millimeters per hour. Ito po sa may Eastern Samar, Camarines Sur, Camarines Norte at katamtaman hanggang malakas na mga pag-ulan. Ito naman yung nakadilaw. Ito po simula bukas. Next slide please. Now on Sunday, ng tanghali hanggang Monday, ito naman po ang expected rainfall scenario. Ang naka-red, of course, na-mention ko, ito pong makaranas ng mga matinding pagbuhos ng ulan, walang humpay na pagbuhos ng ulan. Of course, ang Kabikulan, Camarines Sur, Camarines Norte, Catanduanes, maging ang Quezon at Aurora. Samantala, ang naka-orange, ito po yung mga lugar na makakaranas ng malakas hanggang sa napakalakas ng mga pag-ulan, 100 to 200 millimeters of rain. Kung hindi magbago po ang track, worst case scenario, Metro Manila po kasama po dito. And of course, ang kadilaw, ito po yung makakaranas ng mga bahagyang o katamtaman ng mga pag-ulan hanggang sa malakas na mga pag-ulan. Next slide please. Dahil po mabilis ang pagkilos ng Bagyong Pepito at may kalakasan ng kanyang intensity, ito rin po ang ating babantayan, ang storm surge na maaaring umabot ng more than 3 meters. Ito po yung mga dalampasigan na naka-highlight in orange, particular na doon sa Kabikulan kung saan ay inaasahan na doon direktang tatama ang sentro ng Bagyong Pepito. Next slide please. Yun lang po ang maikling report ko about the latest about Pepito.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's more or less as has been forecast and what we have been seeing sa mga briefing na ginagawa ng Pag-asa. Ito lang, dahil ang track nitong Pepito, hindi lang basta tatawid ng Pilipinas, talagang dadaan from this track that we are looking at. First, the first area it will hit will be Eastern Visayas, and then all the way up Bicol to Luzon. Kaya mas malaki ang area na tatamaan nito, and that's why our preparations have to be done accordingly. All right, I think that we have all seen at least a version of these maps that Pag-asa has just gone through with us. Okay, so of course the next thing that we need to do is the OCD will give us a run-through of what we have been able to do thus far to prepare for Pepito.
Good afternoon, Mr. President and members of the Cabinet and colleagues. So next slide, please. So before I go with the preparations for Pepito, I just wanted everyone to be aware of the effects of Christine, Leon, Marce, Nika, and Ophel. All of these tropical cyclones affected the country in 3 weeks or so. And also somewhat made some preemptive evacuation. And if you would look at the map on the right side, you would see in terms of the heat map or severity of the situation, northern Luzon has been affected by several typhoons. And the light blue colors are the ones affected by Christine, Leon, Nika, and Ophel. And the white ones are affected by Christine and Leon. Of these 4 tropical cyclones, it was Christine that made some kind of casualties, 162 dead. But if you would look at Marce, Nika, and Ophel, equally strong tropical cyclones, we have 1 casualty for Marce and 2 missing persons for Nika and Ophel. For Ophel, we haven't had any casualty yet. We're expecting for Nika and Ophel for the statistics to still go up because they had been affected from one way or the other. Just one day of calm to be able to do rapid assessments. Next slide. And this is also the statistics for specifically for NICA and OFEL. This is going to be a running data as of now because most of the local government units haven't been doing a rapid assessment yet because for OFEL, and some of the preparations are still being done, mainly because they have to consider worst case scenario as well for Pepito, if they would be affected as well. But looking at it, based on the heat map again, it's Region 2 that has been affected, specifically Isabela for NICA, and followed by Cagayan, mainly because of the strong winds and the amount of rain that it poured over the region. Next slide, please. So, in terms of preparation, we do pre-disaster risk analysis within the NDRRMC. We know for a fact that risk analysis is very important to understand and to have an awareness of the elements of the risk, especially people that are going to be along harm's way, and even the services that would be affected in case there would be some kind of a risk. And in this particular, we rely heavily on the information coming from PAGASA, and this how could be translated into warnings and alerts at the local level. And also for the public to be aware of the hazards to consider in terms of planning, and specifically for preparedness planning. For us, it's also very important that since there are consecutive tropical cyclones coming our way, it's very important to have that window of calm, or to determine that window of response that we can be able to replenish and at the same time preposition assets in between that calm. And basically, it's very important as well to consider at Manila level, at the national level, the likely scenario. All of these are being translated into worst case scenario by the agencies or by the local government units. Since there is what we call the window of uncertainty, we're not sure yet where Pepito would be heading. So in terms of planning, we have already alerted with the support of the local government units through the DILG to alert Regions 1, CAR, 2, 3, NCR, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, 5, 6, 7, 8. For 6 and 7, they're also being alerted because of the activity of Canlaon, sir. Next slide.
Wait, before, just to be very clear, when you say we alert them, what do we do exactly?
Basically,
What does it
these
mean that you
alerts are
alert
being translated into what they call this one, warnings. Warnings to the local government units to do preemptive evacuation, inform them of the hazards that are coming their way. For example,
Who do you alert? The province?
The province, the local government, from the province, municipal, and even the barangay level, sir, through the support of the local government units and
but
DILG.
OCD sends the warning to the province,
Yes,
I
sir.
presume.
Yes, sir. That's what we do.
All right.
We work hand in hand with the DILG. Next slide, please. So basically, all of this from PAGASA and from the MGB, Mines and Geosciences Bureau of DNR, we overlay the number of people and the barangays that would be affected. All of these are translated into warnings, alerts, and in the same manner, memoranda to the local chief executives. And this is very important, at least for the people to heed the advice from their local chief executives. And at the same time, it's very important for us to understand where would be the elements at risk, so that we can be able to make sure that once the storm passes, we can be able to provide emergency relief assistance for life-saving purposes. And to ensure as well that there would be humanitarian access so that people would have access to essential services. Next slide.
Can you explain this map? Because this storm surge is something that we haven't had to deal with us so far. So that is how far if the storm surge is at 3 meters.
Yes.
How far inland? Yung pula, is that the
It
indicator?
depends on, I think PAGASA and MGB would be able to help me with this, but it depends on the slope and it depends
Naturally,
on the
yes, but we know the slopes of these areas. So can you give us some kind of indicator? How far inland if there is a 3-meter storm surge, how far inland will they reach? Maybe we can have a shaded map so that we can also warn those LGUs that are within the danger area that there is a possibility of a storm surge. 3 meters, malaki. Yeah.
If I may, sir, actually MGB had also mentioned to us that as much as possible there would be a minimum of 5-meter easement from the shore. But ideally it should have been 10 meters. 10 meters in easement so that there would be people not on harm's way for that matter.
Actually, there's one thing we learned from Yolanda.
Yes, sir.
It does not matter the distance from the high water mark. It matters the height above the high water mark. You can move 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, but if it's still on the same level, tatamaan pa rin yan. The key element is that that's why the response in Yolanda was actually mistaken, because we moved back from the high water mark. That's not the test. The test is the height above the storm surge. So if it's 3 meters, we have to look at the topographical map and see where 3 meters is above the high water mark. Because we have the communities that are within the storm surge areas have to do other things besides just prepare for strong winds and heavy rain. Kasi pagpasok, ibang effect niyan. So people have to we have to get them to the high ground. It's not enough to move them away from the sea. We have to get them to high ground. That's the only thing that we can do when there is a storm surge. All right, so can we generate that so that the DILG can also specifically target and say may risk kayo na tatamaan kayo ng ano, and we will send them the map and say dito sa probinsya ninyo dito. Oh, all right. Okay, so keep going.
So could you please return to them? And this particular kind of the main message that we wanted to convey here is for local government actions, local government units to take actions. One is preemptive evacuation. And next slide, please. So basically, these are the generic and at the same time the preparedness actions or the preparations for Pepito that is being recommended for the local government units to hit. So the national and local governments are advised to take advantage of the window of calm, that's one day, between Ophel and Pepito to continue with ongoing response for Marce and Nika, and preparation for Pepito for other regions, including the conduct of preemptive evacuation or forced evacuation starting 15 November. And information dissemination in the form of alerts and warnings to the public utilizing national and local media platforms, and replenishment and prepositioning of emergency relief supplies for life-saving purposes. The public is also advised and encouraged to refrain from unnecessary travels to keep supply roads open. Because this number 2 actually was one of the lessons learned we had from Christine. If you would remember, there was a long traffic coming from Matno going to Legazpi, from Sorsogon going to Legazpi, because there were so many trucks that has been stranded along the way. And at the same time, along Camarines Sur, during Christine as well, there was a long traffic and some trucks that has been stranded, and we have a hard time bringing along fuel to Camarines Sur at the time. So from now on, I think this is a very good way to be able to advise the public that supply roads have to be open, supply lines have to be open for emergency purposes. LGU, especially those that have been affected by the consecutive tropical cyclones, to identify.
So tama yon mga kababayan. Kaya nga dito sa amin, kanina wala nang biyahe po pa Manila. Yung mga buses po, in-stop na yung travel from Legazpi to Manila. Pati yung Matnog. Kasi baka maabutan lang sila sa daan, may stranded. at masama sila sa baha. Tama yun. Lesson learned doon po sa matinding pagbaha dulot ni Christine. Nakita yun ng Office of the Civil Defense. Yung preemptive evacuation, kahapon pa po ginawa. Lahat sila dito sa amin, nasa mga evacuation centers na po. Diretso natin yung situation briefing.
Steam and Julian and other tropical cyclones, there are protracted IDPs already in the evacuation centers, specifically in Mimaropa, those that has been affected by Christine because of the landslide and the floods as well in Bicol region. They're still in the evacuation center, and some of them have lost their houses. But then, and at the same time, if Christine would pass through Region 3, those who had already been displaced would still are advised to continue. That means they have, for the local chief executives, they are being advised to identify additional evacuation centers that are sturdy enough to be able to house them. And at the same time, we are calling all local chief executives, especially the governors, mayors, and punong barangays, to implement response preparedness measures. And activation of relevant national and regional coordination platforms such as the NDRRMC Interagency Coordination Center for ease of coordination and decision-making processes. That's all from our side. Next slide. I think basically this is also the preposition sea, air, and land assets for mobility and since 4 November 2024, so that we can be able to provide the necessary equipment or search and rescue teams whenever it's necessary to be deployed elsewhere. And they are here in terms of prepositioning. This is also part of the preparations for Pepito. Next slide. As far as the QRF or OCD, we have more than 211 million as of the moment. And next slide. And in terms of anticipated humanitarian needs, obviously, and hope that Pepito doesn't create some havoc, but in case if there would be, since we have already protracted stay of people in the evacuation center, there would be a need to support camp coordination and camp management or evacuation center management. There are already houses that has been destroyed or damaged, and they will be needing emergency shelter assistance. Water, sanitation, and hygiene in some areas have been an issue in terms of potable water and hygiene kits. And in some other areas, especially the ones in Region 2, they have to, their power and communication has to be fully restored yet. I think from the transmission lines, they have already been restored. But in the distribution lines, that's where the issue is. And then additional food and NFIs to sustain the evacuation centers and even people who have already gone back to their houses. Emergency medical services to sustain basic life support. And rehabilitation of school facilities that has been rendered damaged or destroyed. And in the long run, rehabilitation of livelihoods. I think that's the last slide, sir.
That's it. All right. Just another. I noted this this map that you have preparations for Pepito, where you have the map of the distribution of assets that you have made. I noticed that, well, first of all, we don't see Region 5 and Region 8. So we don't know. But nonetheless, if you look at this, if you look at that map, it seems most of our resources are still in the north, northern Luzon. But that's not. Are we able to move some of those away to bring them to, or again, alam natin, Samar na naman ang tatamaan. Region 8, tatamaan na naman ang Region 8. Equal for sure. And Kamsur again. So, shouldn't our assets be prepositioned there rather than still up, o ginagamit pa, hindi pa makuha, ginagamit pa.
Yes, every morning at the IICC, we would always have a roll call or some kind of a briefing within the interagency coordination center. And all of the regional centers of the Office of Civil Defense are there. And basically, it was not just included here. For example, in Region 8, they have already prepositioned, especially in Eastern Samar and Northern Samar, some flood assets, search and rescue assets already. Even emergency medical teams already been strategically placed. For Region 5, they've already been there since Christine and have been moved. All of these assets somewhat are already prepositioned even before for Marce and even before. So some of them are national assets already just strategically placed in those areas, sir. And if ever necessary, we can also pull out some of the assets in some other regions that are not yet being utilized as of now. But what is very important is some assets have to be strategically placed in some of the regions so that they have at a minimum some readiness to begin with. Mainly because although we haven't seen anything yet for the tropical cyclones, we just have to make sure that there is at a minimum assets for such as this that are prepositioned in any part of the regions.
So, in your judgment, our all of these assets we're talking about are mobility assets, heavy equipment, ambulance, fire truck, water truck, vessels, rescue boats, water assets, helicopters. They are distributed as best as they can be to anticipate the coming of Pepito.
Yes, sir. We, as I showed
Wala
you-
kasi sa mapa yung
Yes, sir.
Region 5 at saka Region 8.
we showed you before, sir, in the initial packages.
The one you
before.
sent me, yes.
Yeah, the
Oh.
more granular
Yes,
dispositions.
yes.
That's replicated throughout the regions.
Throughout the
already.
regions.
Yes, sir. Just
Alright.
for brevity's sake, we did not show it.
The list is on the...
Yes, I see that, pero the locations is not shown. And again, Region 8, because malapit na eh. Malapit na yan. As it is clearly, it will be there first. The rain will be felt first in Region 8, and then 5, and then depending on the track, tatawid na ng Luzon.
So that's the presentation ng OCD. So far, yung mga flood assets, mga kababayan, and rescue assets, nakaposisyon na po, pre-positioned na sa mga areas na kailangan po. Identified na po nila. Ngayon, dito tayo sa sa relief, yung presentation ng DSWD. Pakinggan natin yung presentation, mga kababayan, ni Secretary Gatchalian.
3 slides, if you can pull up the 3 slides. Mr. President, just like what the OCD people did, we contextualize it in the point of view of starting with Christine. Just for everybody's information, Mr. President, October 19, our national stockpile of family food packs stood at close to 2.1 million. Now, right after Christine and Leon, that number dropped to 1.3 million nationwide. Now, these numbers, Mr. President, are not static because while we do pre-position, we also produce in our warehouse simultaneous. So, for the total 5 storms, Christine, Leon, Marce, Nika, Ophel, we release a total of 1.6 million. So theoretically, if the number was static, ang matitira na lang sa atin, 2 million less 1.6, dapat nasa 400 na lang. But it doesn't work that way because every day we produce. From out of our repacking center in Pasay, then we opened another center in Central Luzon, and then one in Visayas is running that supplied Bicol, actually. Now, Mr. President, again, we are now in the stage where we pre-position, we produce, we dispatch, all at the same time. We produce and respond at the same time, in short. Next slide. Now, Mr. President, we tried to ascertain saan dadaan si Pepito, and these are the areas where we reinforce the pre-positioning. So for Region 1, we're back to its original strength of 91,000 pre-positioned family food packs. Region 2 is only at 18,000 because nagre-release pa rin sila up to now. That whole operation will end for Ophel by Sunday pa, Mr. President. Because as we speak right now, we're still getting a lot of requests for augmentation from local government units. So what's happening is we send, they release, we send, release. By Sunday, bookend na ho kami for OFEL sa region, for the storm OFEL. Region 3 is at 56. This used to be at 300,000 because, as I mentioned, we're repacking there and deploying to the regions. Now, CAR is at its close to its maximum capacity at 652,000. Calabarzon, Mr. President, we focused on Quezon at 30,000. This one we're not worried, Mr. President, because meron pa siyang ibang peripheral warehouses outside that Quezon area. And then Region 5, we brought it back to 98,000. Ideally, it should have been at 150. But Mr. President, meron pa rin kaming sinasagot na early recovery for Christine. That hasn't stopped yet. Now, Region 8 is close to its original at 83,000, Mr. President. So, this should sustain us. I mean, ideally, should have been bigger, but this should sustain us for the first impact. And then we'll keep on augmenting as we go along. Ang nangyayari kasi, Mr. President, as I mentioned, we are still releasing for the previous storms while stockpiling and doing everything at the same time. Now, the third slide, Mr. President, are the major takeaways. We maintain a 1.3 stockpile nationwide, especially in Vismin. We're not dropping that. Then we're now utilizing 2 supply lines. Simultaneously, we're producing from Central Luzon, Pasay, and Cebu. But we're already getting our suppliers delivered to us pre-packed. So dalawa na, while we're producing, we're also receiving pre-packed levels. Now, Mr. President, we anticipated that starting this weekend, Saturday till Sunday, our normal Luzon-based production was at 35,000 a day.
Okay.
But next week, we'll hit 85,000. It won't drop at 50,000 kasi we're expecting Pepito to be really bad. So that's why sinabay-sabay namin lahat for next week. So our Luzon-based production or stockpile will be at any given time 50,000 a day, sometimes pa 85,000. Now, from November 13 to December 7, we would have produced close to 1 million family food packs on top of the 1.3. So yung lagi hong tinatanong kung kaya pa ho natin. Kaya ho natin because we just got our QRF and we can produce another 1 million on top of the 1.3 million that's spread nationwide. So we're okay, Mr. President, in terms of family food packs.
All right. Okay. And all right. So we have a little time, very little time, to ramp up all of these preparations. So let's take full advantage of that. And so we are okay we are all right in terms of the food packs and in terms of the other, yung mga wash mo, non-food. Okay. And well, all right. Again, to give us a better idea, Pag-asa, can you tell us anong winds niya and how much water do you expect us to get in the different regions?
The wind strength as of 2 p.m. this afternoon, Mr. President, is 150 kilometers per hour near the center, and then with the gustiness or bugso na abot ng 185 kilometers per hour. Of course, we expect this to strengthen as the Pepito move closer to Eastern Visayas and Bicol regions. Rainfall, of course, kanina po up to 200, greater than 200 millimeters of rain, particularly in Catanduanes. For 2 days, ito po yung makara-receive talaga ng malakas mga pag-ulan. And then on Sunday afternoon to Monday afternoon, Camarines Sur, Camarines Norte, and Quezon.
Is there a way to forecast how many inches, how many millimeters of rain is expected?
Yes, there is a corresponding millimeters of rain, and of course the expected impacts on the ground, on the rainfall freeze.
Really have to do that so that because the only way to battle a storm surge is to go up pagka medyo matibay-tibay yung building, pwede kang umakyat and just let the storm surge come in. Pero kung walang ganun na shelter, kailangan kailangan umalis sila dun sa area na yun. Kundi itatangay talaga sila ng pagbalik ng tubig, dadalhin sila sa labas, dadalhin sila sa dagat. So that's something that we have to pay attention to. So can we generate that map as soon as possible so that we can allow the DILG to warn those areas? that there is a storm surge. Now, what is the warning pag storm surge? Anong sinasabi natin sa tao na ano itong bantayan ninyo? Ito yung gawin ninyo. Kailangan talaga evacuate. Talagang pinakamaganda evacuate.
Yes, sir. That's the only solution.
Mr. President, in the past,
So, dito sa amin, because of that order mga kababayan, forced evacuation yung ginawa ng aming bagong mayor dito. Ayan po yung aming mayor, napakasipag po. Lahat na sila nasa evacuation center po. Maganda yung aming evacuation center. Yan po. Nasa inspection siya. Yan po. Yan o. Sa kwan nito mga kababayan, sa Ibalong Sintrom for Recreation, diyan ginawa mga kababayan yung pinunta ng ating Pangulong Bongbong. Yung ayuda for farmers, fisher folks and families, presidential assistance, dito ginawa po. Yung kinover po natin. So ginawa muna siyang evacuation para sa mga residenteng peligroso, mababa yung lugar nila, pwedeng mabaha. Yan ang kalagayan nila po. Fully air conditioned naman po siya. Kaya malamig dyan. Very safe sila, mga kababayan. Kasi, in-implement din dito, mga kababayan, ng aming mayor, yung no rescue policy. Kaya lahat dapat yung mga nasa peligrosong lugar, talagang sinundo na mismo ng mga trucks. Forced evacuation po. Kasi ayaw din ng aming mayor na malagay sa panganib po yung ating mga rescuers, kasi hindi man po sila mga Superman. Lahat dapat ng mga peligrosong lugar, yung mga residentes na mahina yung bahay, pwedeng magiba po easily dahil sa lakas ng hangin. Inalis na po sila lahat sa kanilang mga bahay because of our zero casualty goal. Ganon dito po, preemptive evacuation, forced evacuation po. Ayan na sila, mga kababayan, sa mga safe na lugar. Matataas, hindi binabaha, at malakas yung mga buildings. So hindi pwedeng ilipad yung bubong. Ayan na po, partial evacuation report kanina to, 5 hours ago. Ayan, 137,656 individuals, Legazpi partial evacuation report. Yan po, yung aming mayor. Yan siya, mga kababayan. Yan yung mga post niya. Shorter working hours is encouraged today for private establishments, personnel, staff, for them to prepare for the incoming tropical storm Pepito. Ready lahat po. Yung public safety officers po sila. Nakaposisyon na rin po yung mga relief, mga pagkain. Tapos yung city engineering po, yung mga nauna na sila, nag-clearing operations po. Yung mga kahoy, tig 3 man, yung mga sanga. Tapos may declogging ng mga declogging of canals and waterways, cutting and clearing of tree branches adjacent to electric wires, in conduct of other mitigation efforts. Yan yung order ng aming mayor to the city engineer. Di ba? So, itong preparations na to, ginagawa po kasi, di ba, yung Christine, marami yung namatay, 155. Hindi na pagandaan masyado kasi mahina naman yung hangin. Ang problema po, yung tindi ng pag-ulan. yung baha. Ito yung interview kanina sa ating Pangulo ng mainstream media. Pakinggan natin.
Na yung briefing natin, na yung mga gagawin natin. We have to, una natin ginagawa we have to redistribute our assets na ginagamit natin para sa mga nakaraang bagyo na mostly dumaan ng Northern Luzon. So yung ibang asset na yan kailangan dalhin sa mukhang tatamaan na naman ng big pati Region 8, pati Region 5 mukhang tatamaan ulit. And then back na naman dito sa Region 2, Isabela, Cagayan. But also Central Luzon kasi pati NCR mukhang naaabutan ito eh. So we have to reposition many of our assets to make sure that at least in the search and rescue phase we are ready or we have our assets available. The LGUs are being continuously informed about the weather situation together with guidance and instructions on what to do. The airlift capability for pagdala ng mga gamit for search and rescue, mga relief goods, etc. ay mukhang nakahanda naman. Airlift, pati niya yung mga barko na nagdadala ng mga relief goods. Ang aking nakita na medyo bago at naiba doon sa mga nakaraan ng bagyo, yung storm surge. Kung naalala ninyo, ito ang napakadelikado dahil noon nung nagka-storm surge tayo, lalong-lalo na ng Yolanda, ay hindi natin alam kung ano yung storm surge. Ngayon alam na natin. So lessons learned from the previous typhoons where we have had storm surges, it seems to be a significant one because if we're talking about 3 meters, that's almost 1 floor. So kailangan talaga nating abisuhan ang mga LGUs natin na nakikita natin na makaabutan ng storm surge. So this is what we are concentrating on. We have very little time to do it because ang forecast is that the storm we will start feeling the storm by tomorrow. Kasi hindi naman not necessarily yung mata ay pumasok na kahit na yung sa gilid pa lamang kumukulo na yan. The rainfall is going to be comparable to maybe pristine and marshy, and we hope that that's why.
So yan mga kababayan, ang mga preparations na ginagawa ng ating national government with of course nauna na yung ating mga local governments kasi alam na nila yung dating ginagawa mga kababayan, the usual practice na preemptive evacuation. So ang gawin natin po, manalangin tayo na sana tumaas yung track ng bagyo sa karagatan na sana mga kababayan, hindi na sa kalupaan. But siyempre, kailangan natin yung tamang paghahanda kasi sa general direction ng bagyo, tutumbukin mga kababayan yung Catanduanes. So be safe po mga kababayan. Yan lang po yung ating video ngayon. Ako po si Dante Maravillas. Bye-bye. God bless.